Same here. Great, thanks everyone. Great to be here. And thanks to the 97th floor team for, is this on? Yeah, can you hear me? Is that good? And thanks to the 97th floor team for putting on such a great event. You know, I grew up skiing in the Cottonwood Canyons over Brighton Snowbird. So this is my first like real Deer Valley experience, which is good. And it was great to arrive here at the Montage. This is a nice place. They do things right here. So I pull up and, you know, I actually pulled into the self-park, first of all, trying to park my own car. But then I realized all the cars were backed in and parked in a certain direction, so I realized that wasn't going to work out. So I pulled to the valet parking, and you know the experience was pretty seamless. Like they greet me and they ask me my name, they radio my name to the front desk, and they greet me, and it's this very like handheld experience the whole way. And you know that's what good experiences are made of. This coordinated experience, all these different touches that go together seamlessly. And you've probably experienced at hotels or other places experiences that don't work out super well. And so take a look at this clip and see if you can identify with some of those.
Target's been neutralized on the edge of that attack. Checking into the penthouse. The name's Hunter.
Does that mean Sandra and you were fishing with him?
Wait, did you say Hunter?
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't have a hunter.
Did you email the confirmation to my watch?
Well, marketing handles emails. Oh, I have a Hanson.
No, it's Hunter. I picked my room on your app.
Oh, we have so many apps lately.
I'm a platinum member. I have a promotion. Your free website.
Promotions are on a different system, but I do have a single on the ground floor, Miss Hanson.
It's Hunter. My name is Hunter.
So maybe you can identify with some of those. You know, the promotions are on a different system. As marketers, we have to coordinate all these different touches that go across. So you know, you're probably familiar with Adobe, Photoshop, maybe PDF. We have a significant enterprise business that has large operations here in Lehigh, which is where I'm based. And we're looking at experiences. How can we help our customers craft these seamless experiences that go end to end and are cohesive? So when I started at Adobe, I have worked in a bunch of startups, and I started at the Adobe Seed Incubator. So we had a bunch of early stage projects we were trying to get off the ground and test with the market and see if they took off. At the time, we had a lot of interesting things, some image recognition, AI. We had some weird things like ad networks and PDFs, ebooks business. So we're just trying to see what took off. But at the time, this was before the advent of the iPad. So there was a lot of rumors like, oh, what is this magical tablet device is supposed to come out? And one of our designers was friendly with the people over at Wired magazine and sat down with them and said, you know, we're hearing about this rumored iPad. Let's sit down and see if we can reinvent the magazine experience for this rumored device. What would it look like? What would the navigation look like? Would it, the scrolling, do you feel a sense of completion when you finish the article? And so they put together this magazine experience, and it was pretty rough at the time. I had to procure a tablet device. So again, this is before the iPad. This is what the tablet device looked like. It was this Dell device. So you know, you can twist off the screen, and it's a touch device. And it was pretty kludgy, this experience. It didn't have an accelerometer, you know, when you rotate the device to portrait to landscape. So we bought one off Amazon, and we plugged it in, this USB stick, and put a bunch of electrical tape around it. And it was this really rough experience. But we showed it around to a bunch of different people, and they thought it was kind of cool. And so we decided to make a video about it and put it out in the market and see what kind of reaction it got.
There's a revolution going on right now in the way that people consume journalism. We're at a point where technology is going to enable us to view and consume media in an entirely different way, whether it's in paper, mobile devices, or iPhones, or pad. There are going to be a number of ways that people want to engage with that content.
So we crafted that video and we put together a press release and shot it out a little bit, not really knowing what the reaction would be, but we were super surprised. Like, everyone really liked this. So there was a lot of press, people writing articles. And again, in the magazine industry at that time, there was a lot of pain because they were trying to reinvent themselves. Like, how do we monetize magazines? Is the iPad going to save us? Can we get people to pay for content more? So there was a lot of pain in the industry at that point. But we sent out this press release and the video, and it got a lot of great feedback. And when the iPad launched, we crafted this Wired magazine to be on the iPad right when it launched. So it was the first tablet magazine on that device. And so we're kind of getting some buzz in the marketplace, and people are trying to see this, or trying to download this. This was a pretty custom effort. So it was a lot of hands-on design, working with the Wired team, working with their creative director to craft this. So the magazine industry in New York is pretty tight-knit. So one of their sister publications, The New Yorker, got wind of this, and they, like all good siblings, they steal their siblings' stuff, right? So they wanted an iPad version of their magazine also. So we fired up the designers again, designed this pretty custom version, and followed the same playbook. So we issued a press release, did some co-marketing with The New Yorker, and got a lot of good press. This is a beautiful cover. If you download it on the iPad, this was the first edition. This is the David Hockney watercolor, and it animates, so you can see all the different brush strokes come on as you open up the magazine. So pretty beautiful cover. The New York is a lot different than Wired magazine, though, because Wired is pretty visual and high fidelity layout. The New Yorker is text heavy. If you've ever read some of their content, it's pretty text heavy. So we had to again reinvent this experience to be more HTML focused. So again, a lot of high touch engagement with the New Yorker to figure out. And it got a lot of great press. So the New York Times and other industry publications covered this. So the problem, though, is we were getting all this great buzz, but we didn't really have a product yet. So we kind of painted ourselves into a corner. And I remember going to a publishing conference in Berlin where I was meeting with some attendee, and they said, I was explaining what we do, and they were like, well, where is that? I want that. And I had to say, well, let us check back with you on that. So we had created all this demand, but now we were in a position, wow, we have to fulfill this. And how do we fulfill some of this to meet some of the expectations? So that summer we put together, I took the sound out of this video, but we put together a video to kind of show people, okay, this is how you would create a digital magazine. You've seen everything in the market, but this is, you take the page layout, publishing program, InDesign, you put some interactivity in it, and at that point we begin to coalesce our value propositions. So designers could produce a experience like this. You didn't have to dive into Xcode or build an app yourself. This was pretty accessible to designers. You can create interactivity and create these amazing experiences. But again, this wasn't a real product, so we're just kind of like hand-waving at this point, saying, yeah, this is kind of how it goes. But by the end of that summer, we were able to kludge together, and you're seeing it right here, a very early version of the product. And if you look very closely at the top, it says beta version 0.1. So I don't know if you can put any more disclaimers on something other than that. But so this is, we opened this to a pre-release program and had a group of trusted partners that we were able to experiment with this early version. So now we were transitioning from, okay, these high-touch engagements to we have a little nucleus of something that we could work with here and get some people testing it kind of in a private forum to see if it really worked. So that was during that summer, and then after that, this happened.
When I saw that iPad, I wanted a digital issue of the magazine immediately.
So that was interesting. So New York publishing community kind of tight-knit again. Martha comes knocking, so she wants an iPad magazine. So again, this was a high-touch engagement, but we were blending the beta version 1.0.1 product that we had to create her magazine. This was pretty beautiful. You saw the peony bloom. Martha has 770 peonies in her garden, come to find out. But it was this beautiful cover that bloomed as you opened it and invited the reader in. And she was able to launch that magazine. So again, we followed that same playbook. We've produced a video about them, did some PR, social media, part of that, put it on our blog, YouTube channels, and used Martha's network also to push that message out into the marketplace. And when we were filming the video, it's kind of an interesting thing. So Condé Nast, Wired, and the New Yorker, they're in Times Square. Martha Stewart, they're over in Chelsea, over by Chelsea Piers in Manhattan. And it's this beautiful building that they have. It's open space. They have events there. I think when we shot the video, they were having like a wedding gallery in this grand ballroom that they have there. But you walk into Martha's office, and it kind of feels like a village. There's people in one corner who are cooking food, and people in another corner who are crafting, people in another corner who are sewing clothes, and they have all these different pockets of activity going on all throughout the building. And as we were preparing for this video shoot, we got the idea, yeah, we should invite Martha herself to appear. It can't hurt to make the request, so let's just put it out there. And she accepted, which was great. So we got her on camera. She's like super polished. We didn't have to do a second take. And then we were able to, again, produce this video, do PR, and push it out into the marketplace. So that was a success. And then she came to our user conference for creatives in LA that year and presented with our CTO. And our CTO went on her show. So this is kind of an odd couple here. It's like this nerdy CTO with Martha. Martha's pretty inventive. I don't know if you've seen her new show on VH1. It's Martha and Snoop Dogg's potluck dinner party. Has anybody seen that? It's kind of an odd, crazy. It's surprisingly amusing though. If you watch it, it's Snoop Dogg and all his friends with Martha, and they're like cooking live in front of a studio audience. In fact, Martha has a Super Bowl commercial coming out. If you've seen the previews that everyone leaks the week before, she pulls off the Jack in the Box character's nose. It's this bizarre. So she's really inventive and out there. So she came to our thing. We went to hers. So at this point, this was starting to get a little bit of traction. This digital magazine was starting to get a little bit of traction within the company, and people were noticing it. So we had followed our playbook of video, PR, and social media. And then our corporate marketing teams decided to get on board. So they produced ads and started to swell the message a little bit further than what my team could do. So this ran online and in a variety of print media also. But then a really interesting thing happened. So we had Wired, we had the New Yorker, we had Martha Stewart, and then some other magazines came into the fold. So National Geographic, Rodale, who has Runner's World and Men's Health, and some other titles. And then Hearst, which is a big magazine company, they came into the fold also. But then it was interesting, it leapt from the magazine industry, and other people started seeing the value of it too. So Sotheby's, the art auction house. So they they auction a lot of collectibles and art. It's really for high net worth individuals. And they saw the value in this kind of publication also. So again, they're not a magazine publisher. They publish this big, thick catalog that shows all the art from Asia and these statues and things. And they realized that, okay, I can have my designers produce this. And it's also a benefit to our clients too, because as they're on their private jet or wherever, they don't have to lug around this big, thick catalog. They can just take their iPad, which has a lot of other things on it too. And then by this time, we had started putting some analytics into it so they could get a sense of, okay, people like the Mediterranean statues, and they're not reading so much about the ancient art or what have you. So they started producing, which was interesting, and we followed our playbook. We made a video and did PR and social media around them, trying to swell the ground force. And again, like all siblings do, what do? They steal their siblings' stuff. So their sister company, Sotheby's Realty, got on board too. They saw this as a tool to highlight properties. So the real estate agents are out in the field and they can show a listing in Singapore without you having to go there. They can show it to you. They can pull up video and have the interactivity. Previously, they were producing this big box of printed materials that shows how their real estate agency is going to market your property for you. And they would try and get listings that way. But the problem is when they produced this big, beautiful box of printed materials, it was out of date as soon as it arrived at their agent's doorstep. So they saw this as a way to update content pretty quickly on the fly and then just push it out. And then a lot of other people came on board. Celebrity cruises. You can see the ship deck before you even book a cruise and get a sense of some of the ship activities or offshore excursions. Again, all instrumented with analytics so they can see what's hot, what people are looking at. The Buffalo Bills, NFL, they have this game day program so you can get a sense of who the players are, and there's live tweets that stream in there. The Marines got on board, so they have their Marines magazine. So it kind of spiraled from there and jumped across different industries to see not where we started in magazine, and then it's shifted to these other places. So some learnings that, as I've thought about this over the years, I think one thing that was key for us is to prototype with real customers. I think our strategy teams, they're really smart, but sometimes they get away in this theoretical exercise where here's a market and we're going to attack it because it's this big and we have some competitive advantage here and we think we can go in there. But it's not really grounded in like rubber meets the road. Let's do prototyping and experiment with customers. So that was, I think, key to this example here is we had an engagement with Wired. People were familiar with that brand. And then it was part of a community that we were able to then leapfrog out and go acquire other customers that way. So we prototyped with real customers. It wasn't fake content. It was a real engagement, solving real customer needs too. But I think also we set our prototypes free. So sometimes if you have a new idea, you create a product, and you hear this in every entrepreneur type lecture, but how important it is to get feedback early on. But it really is true. And it kind of requires a degree of humility to say, yeah, this isn't perfect. We're not going to let perfect be the enemy of the good. But we had this prototype with Wired. We just put it out there. It could have flopped in PR, but given the market conditions and the quality of the product, it did really well. And then we were able to go to the New Yorker and then leapfrog from there because we set the prototype free, which was key. And then customers are the best proof. So again, that playbook, PR, video, social media, that was our nucleus to get things off the ground. And we had our customers do our marketing for us. So we filmed a video of the lady at Sotheby's and Sotheby's Realty and Celebrity Cruises, and they were talking about how great this was for us. So all we had to do was provide the channels, the infrastructure to get the message out. And many times we use theirs too, like Martha Stewart's or Celebrity Cruises issued their own press release. So we latched onto some of theirs to help propel this into the market. And two other things that I think worked really in our favor. One was the crafting the message, the narrative of what this product is, and then how we got it out there. So I think every marketer should read this book entitled Story by Robert McKee. He's a screenwriter, Hollywood screenwriter, but it talks about how to craft narrative and how to create a compelling story. So he talks about at the beginning of this is a linear plot. At the beginning of a narrative, you have this inciting incident. So the order of the universe is somehow off kilter now. Something has happened to destroy the order of the universe, and now we need to put that back in order. So there's some problem that we have. And then as that narrative progresses, there's a series of complications that happen. So life gets more complicated. Some good things happen, but then a bad thing happens, and then it kind of builds up. I mean, when it comes to a crisis where now there's a big problem, and the climax, which is where the character has to make a decision that will irreversibly affect his character. There's no going back at this certain climax point in time. You have to make a decision and then go forward from there, and then the plot resolves. So how we adapted this for our purposes, it was pretty simple. So when we had Martha or Celebrity Cruises or Sotheby's come to do a case study or video, we would ask them, well, what's your business problem? What has gone wrong in the order of the universe for you, and what are you trying to fix? So in a lot of these magazines cases, it was, we have declining readership, circulation, people aren't buying our product. We view magazine subscriptions and advertising as a way to remedy some of this. For Sotheby's Realty, it was that their stuff was out of date, their marketing material was out of date when it was delivered, and then that posed a problem for them. They were communicating inaccurate things, and they couldn't update it. So we asked them to articulate their business problem, and then for the climax, how did you solve it with us? So why did you choose Adobe, and what features of our product helped you to overcome that problem that you did? So for some, it was the analytics. For some, it was the fact that their designers could produce this material. And then for the resolution, what were the business results? How did this quantifiably impact your business? And we had to really drill in to get them to articulate ROI for us beyond just the surface level thing like, oh, our real estate agents are excited about it. Well, how did that impact you? Can you estimate an uplift in revenue, or can you estimate a number of clients that you acquired or net new readership? So to really help them to articulate that. And then we would do all kinds of stuff with that, tweet out the metrics, put it in blog posts, case studies. So kind of expanding. As this got momentum, we would expand from our core trifecta here of video, PR, and social, and then do all the things that B2B marketers normally do, sales enablement and events, field marketing, all these other tools in the arsenal to expand once we had validated the concept and gained some traction using this trifecta. And PR worked for us because we were doing B2B marketing. If I were doing B2C, I'd probably amp up the social a little bit more to get that organic reach. So that was one key learning, is crafting that message and creating a compelling narrative that people could identify with. But the second was how we propelled it into the market too. So if you think about this network here, so the person in the middle has 7 connections. And I think this is 7 connections in their audience. And I think this is kind of an old model where we talk about audiences and broadcasting to them, whereas with social media, and especially now, your Instagram follower count is probably a lot smaller than your Facebook, because it's moving more to tribes and more mini networks. So in this more built out network, you see a person over there has 7, but they're also connected to various others over there. So if you look at the 2 green ones there, which do you think has more influence in the network? Is it the one on the left or the one on the right? Who thinks it's the one on the left? And who thinks it's the one on the right? So there are, so in this model of not just followers, but influence within the network, where your position makes a big deal. So mathematicians calculate this, and they do crazy things like matrix algebra to do this, which is why we hired data scientists, right, or statisticians. But if you calculate the influence of a certain node in the network, so the one on the left actually has more. And so you calculate this by adding all the sum of the centricity of your neighbors in each node. And it's that proportion. So that's what the matrix algebra does. I can barely hire an intern versus a data scientist, but we'll talk about ways to get around that. But so this one is more connected, is connected with people who are better connected and therefore has more influence, versus this one is not as well connected. So that worked for us because the publishing community was small, and we were able to identify some key influencers, the guy at Wired. Certainly Martha helped a lot, and we were able to broadcast using her channels, which helped both on the old model and this new model. But that developed this word of mouth that was able to propel itself through the network and help us that. So this transition from audiences to tribes. And so you may be thinking, yeah, I can't do matrix algebra, and like me, could barely hire an intern. But there were some social scientists that went to India, and they were introducing microcredit to some of the rural villages there that had never heard of it before. So they went to these villages, and they asked them, okay, if you were to seek information about a loan, who would you go to? And so 48% of the people were able to identify someone. And of the people they identified, it was the same 5% of the people that they always pointed to. And that 5% that they always pointed to, they were on average named about 9 times. So you don't have to do matrix algebra. You can simply poll your network, do some basic market research like they did in India, and get to those influencers that can help propel your message. So if you don't have a big marketing budget, or just quick and dirty market validation and testing, that model works. And then they validated that with tracing gossip through different networks and the like to see how that spreads. So very basic. When we filmed the video with Martha, she had an interesting line that said, at the end, she said, if you're through changing, you're through. So this idea of constant reinvention, and that's why she was looking to the iPad at the time. This is something new. How can I push the boundaries? How can I reinvent myself and look at some of those new areas? And so that's what we're doing here. So we had success in this magazine business, which we eventually kind of merged with our content management system. But now part of my job right now is to look at what are the new areas that marketers are looking at in terms of crafting experiences. Some of these areas that we're looking at include vision, like virtual reality or augmented reality. You see a lot of hype in the media about virtual reality. This is the headset-based experience that immerses you in a world with sight and sound. Brands, there's a lot of excitement around cinematic VR and viewing media with this. Brands are they're doing a lot of brand activation type stuff, but virtual reality, I think, will have particular importance in terms of training. So you see people like Walmart who are training some of their employees via virtual reality and others. So they're trying to give them that immersive training experience from a brand perspective. Augmented reality, so this is something like Pokemon Go, right, that you're familiar with. So overlaying images on the physical world as you point your phone, or in some instances there's like Google Glass has reinvented itself and they have a headset. There's a bunch of different companies like that. So there's a lot of excitement around those kind of things in terms of product visualization. So if you go to a store and you can pull up more information about a product on the shelf and see reviews or additional brand marketing content, there's some companies doing that kind of thing and excited about that. Also wayfinding. Imagine if you're at an airport and you want to make your connection you don't know where the gates are, you can navigate with an augmented reality type experience to traverse your way to your connecting flight. To date, we've seen a lot of brand activation type experiences with that. So IKEA has an app where you can visualize furniture within your own living room and see what it looks like as you scale it to the corner of your bedroom. So there's some things like that, but we think that will be more so than virtual reality, a platform in which marketers can play to engage their audiences, simply because a lot of those experiences are activated on smartphones, and there's a lot more smartphones at a more reasonable price point for augmented reality. Also voice, so you probably have an Amazon Alexa or Google Home at your house. So a lot of interest from brands around voice. At CES a couple weeks ago, voice was everywhere, integrated into every imaginable product that you could see. There were some things bordering on the extraneous, like voice-activated mirrors or voice Wi-Fi-enabled showers for your home. But voice reduces the cognitive load for someone to interact with your product, because they can just speak to it. And so there's a lot of excitement from people who are looking, from marketers who are looking at voice. How do I create a more seamless experience with voice-enabled assistants like Alexa or Google Home? And I think that will be, there's a lot of experimentation with very rudimentary apps right now, like a retirement calculator on your Alexa, or things like, BMW, you can start your car remotely from the Alexa app. The NBA has Alexa skills for virtually every team to check scores, but those are pretty simple. I think we'll see that more turn into things like micro journeys within the home. So LG has this refrigerator where you can, it will read you recipes as you're in your kitchen, but then it also detects through artificial intelligence that your recipe calls for heating the oven to 350. So it will go ahead and preheat the oven for you. And then you're also cooking a casserole, so it sets that pots and pans setting on your dishwasher too. So those connected micro journeys within the home, and brands are looking at how can we be a part of that experience and have our branded content be a part of that or enable that. Also with chatbots, kind of an extension of voice. You may be familiar with Facebook Messenger, automated programs. Domino's Pizza, 1-800-Flowers, Marriott have these automated programs that help you make a reservation or order flowers and the like. Again, still pretty early on in that, but a lot of excitement in voice. And then the natural language, which is the artificial intelligence that interprets your voice too. And finally, Internet of Things. So this is putting sensors on everything in the physical world to feed data back into your experience and make it more seamless and connected. So there are, you're probably familiar with the Disney Magic Band. So when you book a reservation at Disney, you receive this wearable, and that allows Mickey Mouse to approach your child and say, "Hi, William." And so it's this magical experience because it knows that your child is approaching and knows their name, and it's all privacy opt-in. But there, Vail Resorts in Mammoth Mountain has a similar experience where you can, a similar wearable which not only acts as your ski pass, but also facilitates your experience on mountain, whether that's checking in your kids to ski school, or they're looking at extending that into some of their food and beverage and lodging also. So a lot of excitement there. Sensors, Johnny Walker, the Spirits brand has NFC labels, so they can identify, you can scan that. The new iPhone, iOS 11 has NFC enabled, so you can scan that and get a branded experience as you're walking, you're at the store. But it also serves another purpose for storekeepers to know their inventory in stock, as well as verify the authenticity of that particular product. So, a lot of talk around that, as well as we talked about smart homes, but connected cars. So enabling that seamless experience as you leave your house. So you're going into your car, your music starts playing. At CES, there were a lot of dash car dashboards that were completely digital. So you have a steering wheel, except for the autonomous cars, but most of them had a steering wheel and then a digital dashboard, so content can be displayed. It's a touch screen and the like. So again, it's all about experiences, enabling that seamless experience with data and across channels, synchronized across channels. Innovation is at the heart of creating these experiences. So hopefully some of these tools will help as you're pursuing innovation within your own companies, and you can do that on budgets big or small, and then creating these experiences which surprise and delight your users, like in this final clip.
Everybody on the floor! This is the rock! Don't move! Don't move! Get down and stay out! The money's coming!
Mr. Johnson? Eric Johnson?
How does she know your name? I don't know.
Your mobile app pinged us when you walked in. Looks like you were on our website and thinking about buying a house.
Moving out there? My space.
You may think you can't afford a new home, but we have some amazing new rates. I can text them to you. And Mr. Davis? Did you click on one of our emails about consolidating your student loans?
Maybe.
We can help you with that too.
Hey, what are you doing? This is a robbery, remember? We gotta go! Come on!
Can I lock those rates in on the app?
No, of course you can, sugar.
So with that, thanks for having me, and I think we have time for a couple questions.
There are microphones if you have a question or two. I do want to grab, there are some fun things happening on Twitter, some live tweeting. Your Twitter handle, we should be grabbing these. Do you have a Twitter
No,
handle?
I only do LinkedIn, actually.
Oh, man, no. Okay, we'll be using that. Any other speakers, we want to know your Twitter handles. There's some fun things happening. I have a question, and if it's, I don't, till I see hand, like with the e-magazines, what do you, you're in the seed incubator at Adobe, so you're probably seeing a lot of things. What do you feel like is the next kind of big innovative thing after the e-magazines, kind of what you talked about?
Yeah, so in those categories that we talked about at the end, voice is definitely emerging as something that's pretty near term. So there's the infrastructure out there. You can go and code a voice app, simple as it may be. Brands are looking for that to be a little bit more sophisticated, so to know where you are in the experience when you come back to it, or to support things like there's voice recognition that just barely rolled out, so it can identify different speakers or authenticating with that. But voice is here right now. Then I think over the next year we'll see more in augmented reality, and then longer term Internet of Things. But things to think about as you're pushing the boundaries of innovation with your clients or your own companies that are on the horizon.
Cool, cool. Any other questions? I want to know about, I love the chart, what was it, the audience to tribes. I think we all kind of know that in social, things are very sequential and cascading, and I felt like that chart kind of captured that and visualized that well. Where was that conceptualized? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was at a conference a couple weeks ago where Nike was doing that also. So the Nike sneakers app, they had really crystallized a lot of their strategy around that tribe concept too. So they try and find the most passionate users in their base and give them content that's urgent and exciting to propel that out into the market. So they did like an activation with Penny Hardaway, and then he was able to help with that. Or they had another activation where if you went to a certain location, then you could unlock via augmented reality a set of sneakers that you could then purchase. So they had video of people streaming into Washington Square Park in New York trying to unlock these sneakers. So they had identified these very passionate sets of users within their network, and then were able to unlock and mobilize them also. So through what I explained about the India example, so just by doing basic market research, people intuitively know who the influencers are in their network. You can very cheaply find that out. And then if you create content that's urgent and actionable, unlock that, and then use their networks to propel your message into the market.
Perfect. I love that. Let's give a hand to Dave Dickinson for being here.